Okay, we are about 2/3 there, if not 3/4 there. So people will join us as we go along. I want to welcome all of you today for what all of us on here will admit is a quickly thrown together webinar because we're in a time where it's pretty desperate and we really need to get the information out. And I really cannot say how grateful I am for 100+ people have shown up. We are going to record this. I want to make everybody aware of that. And it will be posted on our website so that people can go to this after today because there'll be more questions, I'm sure, from people. The plan for today is for me to pray and then to turn this over to our fine people from the Refugee Resettlement Office. And they're going to walk us through what the current state of affairs are and what we can do to help. That's the real reason for this. Our intent is to keep this to an hour. Just a reminder that in webinars, you should use chat if you're having any kind of technical problem, or if you want to chat with someone else instead of paying attention, or anything like that. But do not put questions and answers to the panelists in chat. Put those in Q&A. We're going to monitor Q&A for those questions. So if you put a question in chat, we're probably not going to see it and we're probably not going to get it answered. So please put that in Q&A. Everything else in chat. We do have a couple of people from the staff today who many of you know, Matt Koski and Josh Hornbeck are with us, and they're panelists and they can help you with the technical stuff. So if there's anything like that, put it in chat. They'll monitor that. Q&A for these panelists to answer any questions as we go along, or at the end you put in Q&A. All right. And that would start now. Like if what I've said is incomprehensible to you and you have a question, then you put it in Q&A and then we'll try to get it answered. But first, I'm going to offer a prayer. And if you have a question about that, I probably can't answer that, but it's a prayer and you're welcome to join if you wish. Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, you have blessed us and given us dominion over the earth. And yet for faithful people, dominion is meant to mean stewardship, not domination. Help us to know the difference and to act in the difference. Increase our reverence before the mystery of life and give us new insight into your purposes for the human race, and new wisdom and determination in making provision for its future in accordance with your way. In the name of the God of love, amen. So I want to first, I want to commend every one of these people that you see, and there are many people that you're not going to see today that work at our Refugee Resettlement Office and on behalf of refugees. This has been a ministry in this diocese for almost 40 years, and it's just tremendous, and it's always kind of hidden away. So I'm not happy about the reason why we're spotlighting it today. None of us are, but I'm sure happy and have great gratitude for the fact that we have this tremendous resource and ministry and these fine people that make it happen every single day. And they've agreed to take some time out of their very busy schedule right now to answer some of the pressing questions that we have right now. And not the least of which of them is Greg Hope, who's the executive director and on our staff, and just a fabulous, wonderful person, great servant, and deeply dedicated to this. So I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to introduce our panelists, and then they're going to be off and going. So welcome again. And Greg, thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody that's a panelist for being here today. Greg, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Well, there's myself. I'll be brief. My name is Greg Hope, and I've worked for the diocese since 1985 and been in refugee resettlement since 1978, when I began with another resettlement agency in Seattle. We've seen a lot of ups and downs over the years, and what we're seeing now with the Afghan diaspora, if you will, is an historic event. So I'm glad there's so much interest in this, and that perhaps we can ask for both time and money from Episcopalians to assist us in this effort. A few of our 12 employees are joining us today to help me explain what's going on. Kristen, who is our community sponsor developer, trying to organize groups that help individual families succeed in the United States, will be followed by Khalida, our newest employee. She's Afghan case manager. She's going to be responsible for assisting and organizing and just helping out Afghan families as they arrive, and frankly others too. We are receiving Iraqis, Somalis, Kenyans, lots of other people. At the same time, we have this Afghan migration. Khalida will get followed by Kristen, who will briefly talk about what we have to offer for sponsor development when tending towards your time over money to help us out. That will be followed by Sarah, our job developer, the most important, after finding housing, getting people set up. Sarah's job is the most important one we have in our office. That's finding jobs for the adults and families, because it is very much a being self-sufficient quickly program. That will be followed by Brian, who's going to tell people how they might participate in English language instruction for us. So Kristen, maybe we can get the PowerPoint up and we can just begin. So this is my slide. I'm going to talk about some arrivals and then how our ask of the Episcopalians of the diocese fits in. We're scheduled in 2022 to have 235 refugee arrivals. That's what before the Afghan exodus, that's what we were anticipating. Some of those we thought would be SIV, what we call SIV cases from Afghanistan, but most of them would be from a variety of other countries. All of the 235 arrivals we'll be experiencing over the next fiscal year are eligible for cash and medical assistance and a host of government programs. This is quite different from the next group on the list, the humanitarian parolees. And those are the ones pictured here, the people you've seen exiting the airport in Kabul, 120,000 Afghans that are arriving. These people are humanitarian parolees. We're scheduled to receive 105 of them for a total arrivals in the next fiscal year of individuals, 340. The thing that's going on here is that Afghan parolees are not eligible for public benefits other than little bit of initial startup money that we have to spend on their first brief months in the US. So no, they can't really they can't get food stamps, they can't get cash assistance, they are not going to be eligible for English classes unless state funds are paying for it rather than federal funds. Basically anything with a few exceptions that's federal money can't go to assist in their arrival and success in the country. There's a number of sort of immigration.
Greg?
Yeah.
Greg, this is the bishop. Could I ask a couple of questions that are coming in? One was offline, but I think it's a question that a lot of people are asking. Why do they call them parolees?
Okay. Yeah, it does have a sort of criminal connotation to it, doesn't it? It's just a term, an immigration term that means it's a legal way for the Attorney General to bring people here because they say they're going to bring people here. It's not, they haven't gone through an immigration process. Many of them, should they have gone through a regular immigration process, would have come as refugees or come as the SIV SQ parolees, which is a different category.
Okay, so it's just a word that you.
It's just a word.
Sure.
It's an immigration, means something in immigration law to allow these people to come here legally, other than just showing up as in some other avenue.
Okay, great.
it's a
Now, the other
term
question
law, I
was,
guess.
yeah, this is maybe easier question. People want to know if they can get these slides, if we'll make these available.
Of course.
Okay, great. All right, I'm going off now, and sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
No, but the main point I'm making is that our focus is the 105 humanitarian parolees who are not going to be receiving the same sort of initial startup effort from the federal government that other refugees get. And we're turning towards the church to assist us in the sponsorship of these individuals. This will probably be 15 to 18 families, or maybe as few as 12 if we get nothing but large families. And I would predict that about maybe 5,000 in additional funds at least is needed for each one of these families. And we hope a much more, it'd be much more of the equivalent, much more in people's time and energy to help them adjust. A final comment I have before we move on, so we don't spend the whole hour on discussion, is that there are many hundreds of thousands of people that are going to be leaving Afghanistan, in my opinion, over the coming months and years. They'll be going to countries in Pakistan, Iran, perhaps Turkey. And I think we'll see a pattern that we saw in the Vietnamese diaspora and the Somali diaspora, and frankly, everything that's happened where the U.S. military got involved and then withdrew. There will be, people in refugee camps wanting to come for many years. And some of them we actually have some contact with. We know some people that are U.S. citizens that have went back to bring their families out, and they were unsuccessful at the Kabul airport, and they'll be heading to Pakistan now to try to get out, be as refugees at a refugee camp. And it may be a long haul, but that'll be the alternative that takes place over the years. Okay, I think that I will pass it on to Kristen, who can introduce herself briefly and talk about sponsor development. Oh no, I'm sorry. We're passing on to Khalida, who's our newest employee, who's going to give you something about herself and what she's doing in the United States.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to hear and talk about myself and about my organization and a little bit about the services. I want to thank from the Greg to introduce me a little. Yes, my name is Khalida and last name is Aymaq. It is 1 month I joined with the Refugee Resettlement Office. As he said, I'm an immigrant. I'm a SIV immigrant. I came here 2 years ago. In Afghanistan, and I was in Afghanistan, I worked about 11 years with 2 different organizations. The first one, I worked about 5 years with the internal NGOs. They work with the women empowerments, and then I applied on another project with the American company called DAI. They implement a project with the Afghan municipalities in 20 provinces, and I work about 6 years with that company and project. After working 2 or 3 years, I realized I'm eligible to apply for SIV, and I applied. After 3 years, my case got approved, and I got visa, me and my family, my small family. I mean my husband and my 16 years old daughter. Then we arranged our trip with the IAM, and we had flight on October 31, 2019, yes. When I come here, as every immigrant, I was full of fears and anxieties because I come in a new environment, in a new country. It's difference between my own country and here. There are a lot of things to worry about it. Fortunately, when I arrived in Seattle, in SeaTac Airport, the first person I meet there, it was my case manager. Sure, I had a US guy here. He was before my colleagues, but I meet my case manager, and he quickly introduced everything and every services they will do for me. Before when I arrived here, my case was registered with RRO. And the case manager pick up us and go to our new house where I was supposed to start my new life. Actually, it was a good place, a good apartment with all the basic supplies, and I start very smoothly my new life. So every day, the case manager and the related person from the organization meet us, and as soon they prepare everything with me, with my daughter and with my husband. My daughter got enrolled in the school, and we got everything about the health issues like health insurance and PCP and everything. So in the first month I started working, they had me in the job search, and in the first month of my arrival in US, I started my working with the Amazon. And I worked about 3 months with the Amazon, and after that, due to COVID-19, we stopped working, and I should stay at home because I had a daughter, she was new here, and should care from her. So after several months, I started as a contractor working with the RRO, just working with the refugees who come recently for some meetings and arranging some trainings like this. And after 2 years, the RRO announced a position in the case manager, and apply. I know there was a lot of person in this position interested and applied. And after passing the steps normally, fortunately, I got access and get this position. And I'm very, very happy to, I'm here in this position and serving the refugees, especially the Afghan refugees. You know, in these days, we have a lot of problem in our country, especially with the refugees. They are come out from the Afghanistan, and a lot of still waiting for the way to find and get out. So I'm very happy, at least I can work for the people who are immigrant, and special for our people from our country. So as a case manager, we are working, we serve a lot of things for the refugees who are coming as a pre-arrival, post-arrival. And the pre-arrival, when I get the case registered with the RRO, and we get preparation to come the refugees, starting from the housing and everything, and then they come arriving here. We start from the pickup from the airport, their home supplies, cultural food, and then health issues like health screening, health insurance, for the public services like food stamp, cash assistance, school enrollment, and every services Greg said to you. And I'm very, very happy. And also I want to thank from the American people. They always support us, and they always do their best to feel good here, and everything go well with us. I would like to thank you again for everybody.
Thank you, Khalida. I guess it's time to move on to Kristen.
All right, thanks everyone. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about ways that you can actually help during this crazy time, and hopefully even beyond too. One of the main focuses that we really want to encourage people to do is actually our co-sponsorship groups. So these are going to be groups of people, whether it's a business or a church or interfaith group, that make a commitment to work with a family for about 6 months to up to a year. And basically what this involves, it would be helping through the entire resettlement process. And so of course, there are a lot of tasks, as you can see, and these are just some of them, but we would work with you to decide which ones your group would like to do, if not all of them. And so this
Kristen, I'm going to interrupt you. This is Greg. I just want to interrupt you for a minute to ask a few questions that might be helpful as we move along. For one thing, try not to use acronyms. One thing that we learned when we sent out that document that we couldn't do anything about this, and I fielded a lot of questions. There were just tons of acronyms in there that nobody knows what they mean. So one that's come up in our discussion is SIV-SQ. Can you tell them what that means? And that'll just wipe out that one question. We'll have more later, but thank you.
Sure. So SIV is special immigrant visa holders. So these are the people that are right now or before right now, I guess, that have come to America from Afghanistan after working with the U.S. government or the military. And SQ, Greg, do you mind?
Well, it's another term for SIV, and for our purposes, it is essentially the same thing. They work for the U.S. government, the military, the U.S. embassy, and these days for a news organization or an important company contractor in Afghanistan during that was an American company. So that, and Afghan, it's a special category that was set up for Iraqi and Afghans that were closely associated with the U.S. that would come as kind of unemployment visas and refugee visas simultaneously. And it's a little bit different than the regular refugee visa, which requires that somebody be outside of their homeland and cannot return to their homeland. SIVs and SQ visas were people living in Afghanistan that got an exit permit as a refugee.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I think we can move on. I just wanted to address that a little bit. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, so again, with these groups, they can help with finding affordable housing, setting up the housing as well, making sure that there's enough food for at least the family for about a week. And this could also be enrolling in services too, such as helping enroll in cash assistance and food assistance, as well as enroll the children that are of age in school too. So these co-sponsors can basically do everything, and we would do the training for them too. So they would have open communication with us, so we could make sure that they feel comfortable, as well as these families feel comfortable too. And we really feel that this co-sponsorship is key, especially now for all of the Afghans coming in. But it's key because it actually forms a community for them, and they will become self-sufficient and more confident quicker. Of course, as Greg even mentioned too, we're always accepting donations, such as the items for the welcome kits, and the welcome kits are the items needed for the actual home. So like brooms, blankets, items like that. Of course, we're accepting gift cards for places like Ross, so they can actually get seasonal appropriate clothing too, and monetary donations as well. And then there are tons of volunteer opportunities too, such as even the ones I mentioned for co-sponsorship and going on with bus orientations, grocery store orientations, helping get state IDs, and helping opening bank accounts as well. So just to quickly go through different ways to help, but we really want to encourage people to assist with the co-sponsorship and help that way. And now I will let Sarah speak.
So hello, my name is Sarah Ulrich. I'm in charge of our employment services that we offer at the office. So just to briefly go over what those services look like. Like Greg said, this is really one of the most important things for new families after they've found housing, really, because our office can only provide a limited amount of funds once they arrive. And then even though for the people that can enroll in cash assistance, that also only goes so far. So a lot of times being able to find a job in the first 1 or 2 months, which sounds like a good amount of time to do job search, but that goes by really quickly, especially when they have a lot of appointments and things falling into place right at the beginning. So what we do with people that are in our job search program is, a lot of times we start out by creating a resume. We really have to look for jobs that are a good fit for each person, because right now, as you guys know, a lot of companies are hiring, but there's always a lot of factors, a lot of things to think about. These people aren't going to be able to get a car or a driver's license for a while. So looking at a spot that's going to work with a bus route and their schedule will work with the bus route, that could be one factor. Each person might have different schedules, different English levels. So it's not really a simple just plugging them into the job openings, but it's really, finding that balance of you need to start work right away, but also trying to find a job that the person's going to be successful at and is going to be able to work there for more than just a couple months. We help them with job applications. That's a really tricky thing to navigate. If you're new to the country, if you don't speak English, it's a tricky thing for people from America to navigate. Sometimes we'll help them prepare for job interview questions. And then we also just support them through the hiring paperwork, through onboarding, through questions they might have, maybe some cultural differences that might show up when they're starting work and learning how to communicate with their manager. And sometimes we'll also try to give them a bus orientation of this is the bus you would take, this is how you would take it, going to work and back. And these are things that, as far as if people volunteer time, resume writing is a great one of being able to help people running through job interview questions, and even applying for jobs. These are all things that are very, very needed. We can, when we have a lot of people, we can really just focus on the bare minimum, of plugging them into a job and being able to start work. But, there's more relational support that can take place there. Yeah, so that's the summary of our program. And now we'll pass it off to Brian, our English program manager.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian. I'm in charge of the English department, and we kind of work with the job department to help newly arrived refugees get the English they need to be successful in job interviews, and also help out people who aren't quite ready to get a job, kind of build those blocks of English so that when they are ready to get a job, they have some English to be able to do that. And some ways that volunteers have helped out in the past for classes. Right now, all our classes are virtual, so it actually makes it pretty easy to volunteer. We do kind of one-on-one tutoring with virtual classes. So it's myself and another teacher, Logan, and we have classes kind of throughout the day from morning to evening to accommodate the schedules of everyone. People are working and people have children and appointments. So we have a wide variety of classes throughout the day, both levels and time. And one of the ways we do it is one-on-one tutoring. So you join a class and we can kind of put you in a room with one student, maybe two students, and you could kind of work with them for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever you're comfortable with, wherever the students are. And some of those things you might be doing, reviewing ABCs. So we have some students that are really, truly beginners at English and are working on just identifying the letters. So that's something you can work on with students. Practicing beginning vocabulary. So kind of building those blocks of words so they have words to navigate their new country. Asking personal information questions, something that everyone kind of needs work on, usually. Really practical for job interviews, what's your name, what's your address, what's your telephone number, and being able to answer those automatically. And And then sometimes we also have higher level students, and there can be conversation practice with higher level students, which can range from anything. It can be about jobs, it can be about their country, it can be about current events, it could be about whatever it is we're going over in English class now. And another big thing is practicing English outside of classes with students, because traditionally, when we've had in-person classes, the students practice English when they're in class, and that's it. So it's very important for them to practice English outside of class, and that's another way that volunteers can help, whether that be a quick Zoom call, a quick check-in, once a week, once a day, every other day, just for a quick little, 10-minute conversation where they can use some of that English that they've been learning in class in a situation outside of class. And that can really help them make gains in that English, as opposed to just coming to class every day. Yeah, and I think that's it for me. So closing remarks and questions are next.
Well,
All right, great. I'm going to come back in and manage that, if that's okay. And
that is
Greg,
certainly okay.
this is for all of the panelists. Please just unmute yourself and get in on these questions. If you, this is kind of a free for all, and that's okay. So I'm going to try to work my way through the questions. We do have some. The first one is, can parolees become eligible as refugees?
I can answer that. I actually just learned this morning some particulars about that. I was wondering, and as things go along here, we're sort of learning on the fly too. But parolees have to apply for asylum during their. I thought it was going to be a 1-year period, but for these parolees, it's going to be a 2-year period. So they have to go to immigration court and apply for asylum. That means we're going to be looking for volunteer attorneys, because none of us are qualified to appear in immigration court with a client to make these applications, and they're not going to be cheap. To apply for asylum and immigrate with USCIS is going to be expensive normally. So that's why I'm saying volunteers, but they will have to adjust status from parolee to asylee.
Okay, great. Thank you. Follow up on that. How do we get the $6.5 billion budgeted for Afghanistan used to help these parolees? This is probably not, if you knew the answer to that, you wouldn't be sitting on this call.
But yeah. There, I think is probably the same question that the Governor Inslee has. He's written to the president and asked for some kind of change in the law or administrative, order to make funding available for Afghan parolees. Yeah, but we're going under the assumption that hasn't happened yet, so it's not going to be happening while people are right at the forts and about to come our way.
Yeah, typical answer, I know, but write to your congressperson, write to the president, try to advocate for that. This is a bit of a attachment to that, I think. Might that change where they would be eligible for federal benefits at some point? I would think maybe if their status changes from parolee to refugee, they might be eligible for more federal benefits. That's where correct. The question's coming from. Yeah.
If they change, but they can, if they apply after they've arrived and they're given asylum status, then they would be eligible for federal benefits. People who arrive in this country, as a Kenyan arrives, declares at the border they're seeking asylum, the waiting lists on those applications are extremely long. So there would have to be another thing that would happen too for Afghan parolees, and that would be to make things move more quickly. And then in the back of my mind, when you do that, you've got to remember on our southern border, it's a little different situation where they have what you call a defensive request for asylum. There's going to be some disparities there. Why is this thing happening where they're being rejected on these same sort of immigration courts while Afghans are, being hopefully readily accepted? So there's going to be some issues there.
Which you won't hear anybody say, but one answer might be because we're going to own this decision, but not own some of our other decisions.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
We'll keep that for another day.
Yeah.
All right. This is a longer question, but a good one. How might you recommend we answer any questions, concerns we get about the difference in the extensive UNHCR screening for people classified as refugees, and yet the quick turnaround for parolees in light of safety concerns? And this person says, I hope no one raises that question, but I'd be grateful for any input you all might give about how to answer that. So I think you understand. It's like people saying, well, we're screening all these other people, and yet we're just letting these in, whole cloth and by the thousands. Any of you want to say what we might say to people doing that?
I mean, it's happening. I can't say that the screening by American soldiers that are 20 years old to get into the airport was this kind of screening you would want to get truly SIV cases and the ones you're after through the system. I know there's going to be people are now at forts, and they will get further screening there, but it's also true that people can, if you have that parolee status, you don't have to stay at the fort. You can just walk away. I think I'm going to have to think a lot further on what the answer is for someone who's extremely fearful of any kind of immigration. I mean, my only answer is that, there's sometimes other things take precedence. We got an emergency situation. We got to be the best we can with these people.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, you all don't have all the answers. Sometimes the answer is it is what it is. And I think I'm afraid that's what it is on this one. Okay, for the Afghan refugees that we will be receiving, what happens to the children who won't be able to go to school if they are part of the special category without support?
The kids will be eligible to go to school. They're not denied school. I didn't mean to say that. I'm thinking more of a different kind of public benefits for public assistance type things that refugees traditionally have taken advantage of for a brief amount of time to get on their feet. They will be eligible to schools, and we've been talking to the superintendent of public instruction and people involved in all this, because there's going to be a need to increase the classes in particularly areas like Kent, Tukwila, SeaTac. There's going to be an increase in the number of kids that they're working with. Yeah.
This is somewhat related, and I think maybe Kristen can come on and talk about this. But will this resettlement be primarily in the Seattle area, or is there a possibility of those of us living in other areas? For instance, this person lives near Vancouver, Washington, to help out as well. And I know that you all have worked really closely with Everett already, Trinity Everett. I know that's going on. So maybe somebody talking about that, specifically addressing, let's say your congregation wants to help, you're in Olympia, let's say, or Vancouver, let's use Vancouver. Do you need that? And how would you all intersect with them to help?
You want me to answer that, Kristen, or you go ahead? Give it a shot.
Thanks. So one of the main things is when people come here, they might know someone else. So we want to have them close to possibly people they know, and as well as they may feel more comfortable being around more Afghans than areas that don't have Afghans there. So we're trying to be mindful of that as well. Greg and I have actually been talking a lot about this, trying to figure these things out, because if there is a want, and if the community is willing to open up, we want to be open to that. But if it's also going to take about 2 hours for us to get there, that it might be harder to do. So I don't know, Greg, if you want to say more about it.
Well, I think that all refugee groups want to live close together, and there are certain dynamics in the Afghan community that I think make that more driven. Khalida, you can tell me I'm wrong, but I think that people have seen a lot of death from the Afghan, that come here, and they don't want to. They're afraid of dying in an isolated place away from their community. And I also think that sometimes we may strive to move people from the housing in South King County that's not always the best, and is, what do they call that? Deferred maintenance by apartment managers. These places are being run down, mostly by overcrowding and so forth. So we would like very much to get decent, safe, and sanitary housing outside of where people are going these days. And we've made a bit of an effort in Snohomish County to do that when we can, when the families want to do it, etc. One thing we've run into is that maybe the male head of family, so to speak, or main wage earner is fine with living in Everett and all the opportunities that are available there, or in a place outside of South King County. But women have their own communities too, and they rely a lot on each other, and they'll be a force within families to live close by other Afghan families. So we're dealing with all of that, yet trying to offer people, resettlement outside of the main places where they're resettled right now.
Yeah, just remember, everybody, this is colliding along with the pandemic, with the evictions being on a moratorium and all of that, still trying to make all this happen in the midst of that as well. So we got about 15 minutes left. We got lots of questions. So I'm going to just urge to try to be brief with these if you can. And what I'm going to say too is that if we don't get to all the questions, which we can stay on here longer, but if we don't get to all the questions, that we'll try to answer these in writing as well, so that we can post these later. Next question, can employers get tax relief if they hire some of these people?
Yeah, so these people most of the people that we're helping to place would be on public benefits, which I believe does give the employer the tax benefit. I'm not sure about the status of refugee. I'm not sure what that would look like on the employer side, and if there's any way that they report that. But for people that are on public assistance, that does help out the company. Great,
thank you. Is there? I think you answered that there is an existing Afghan community. At least in Seattle, I know there definitely is. We've seen them very publicly, and you seem to be tied into those. There was a question with this when I thought Greg said that these SIVs were not eligible for monetary assistance, and yet I hear some of you referring to them getting monetary assistance. So I'm not sure you're going to have time to explain all this, but there is money for this, but I'm going to let you try.
There's two groups of people, the SIV people and the parole. And it's kind of confusing. There's SIV parolees and there's humanitarian parolees. The SIV parolees are eligible for public assistance. The humanitarian parolees, which make the majority of the recent airlift out of Afghanistan, are not eligible for public assistance.
All right, great. These there's a set of 3 questions that I'm going to kind of put together. And Brian, I think you're the one to answer these. First off, I'm assuming there's an adopted curriculum that's provided to ESL tutors. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah. We have curriculum we use, and we would, of course, share that with whoever was helping out.
And there'll be training for tutors. Is that correct? If somebody wanted to do that?
Yeah, of course.
Great. And then another person asked, could they witness, like observe 1 or 2 different kinds of classes before they make a decision?
Sure. Yeah, that would be possible. Yep. I think that would be okay.
All right, great. Let's see. What materials can you supply if they do that? It sounds like you'll supply whatever they need, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, we pretty much everything is online now, so we're pretty virtual, but we can provide other supplies if they're needed or if they come up. Yeah.
What kind of time commitment for a volunteer in the ESL would it be, do you think?
Traditionally it's been maybe once a week kind of thing. But more than welcome to do twice a week, 3 times a week. Because we have lots of classes now because they're virtual and they're shorter classes now. They're not as long as they were when they were in person. So it's really, I mean, we'll take what people can give, once a week though is pretty typical.
Yeah. Okay, great. Maybe this is for you, maybe someone else, but we're on to other questions now. If parishioners have homes that they have available for housing, does that work? How would that work? Are background checks required if you do that? There are quite a few questions about that.
Well, I should probably answer that. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm hogging things here, but I want to make that one clear. There are agencies that will not do that. International Rescue Committee will not let people live in American homes. We've given guidance by the Episcopal Migration Ministries that we can do that, and they understand the housing crisis, not just with us, but around the country. And but we have to do it carefully. And I think that it's best to have that be temporary as much as possible, and not the permanent housing situation. And we'll be looking carefully to, we don't want some idea that there's 6 people in a couple rooms with 1 bathroom or something like that, or it would be best to have the rooms actually separated. But we may actually, having said all that, we're going to be careful. We're going to come in with our clipboard and interview and talk, etc. We'll probably do vetting and background checks and the whole thing, but we may be up against it if we suddenly get 10 or 12 families all at once. We will definitely need temporary arrangements somewhere.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. Kristen, you may be able to jump onto this too. I'll answer it the way I can, and then you can answer it. And it's a question about if we know of individual churches that have already set up refugee help groups. And I know that yes, the answer is yes to that. And Kristen, I think you could maybe more specifically say, because it might be helpful for people here to know which churches have done that already. They may want to contact them and find out what they're doing.
So I'm currently talking to a couple of the churches, but I don't have any official commitments yet. I know there are a couple more North Seattle that are interested, and also one in Kent that's interested as well.
Okay. So let me say this then, Chris. One is Trinity Everett. I think I can say that and let you all know that Rachel Tabor Hamilton is open to talking to you about that. And as we find out the congregations that are interested, we'll be publishing that so you can know which ones are really in trying to do this. You could let me know that you are, which would be helpful in closing that circle. Okay, a question, a good one. What resources are available for cultural sensitivity in providing assistance? Like, is there some training for people so that they culturally are much more adept at dealing with the people that are coming in?
So I think I can answer that one too. Okay. Both for volunteers and for the co-sponsors, we will be having, again, trainings and orientations. And during this time, we will, of course, discuss cultural norms as well, especially for the groups that want to co-sponsor. So they'll be having more interaction, but we'll make sure that, again, they get kind of training from everywhere, from what is needed to do their job, and then also about the families that they will be co-sponsoring, which of course goes into cultural, kind of like a cultural orientation for them as well.
Great. This is kind of related. Is there training and teaching methods for volunteers who might want to help with this activity? For example, how to work with a person who has no English?
So yes, we're going to do all sorts of training. So for example, I guess Sarah, it would be easier for you to speak of this too. If somebody didn't know English, and wanted to do needed job assistance, how would that volunteer go about doing that?
Yeah, so we have interpreters that that assist us. So we can, if someone wanted to have a Zoom call with a refugee and work on creating their resume, we can connect them to have an interpreter in the Zoom call as well. Yeah, so we can give them different resources for how to have an interpreter, just like we do when we work with them.
Great.
I could add real quickly, Bishop.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
We've learned from other church resettlements that interpretation becomes an issue. And although we have, Kalida available, she's going to be doing a lot of other things, and she can't be overwhelmed by 5 or 6 church groups all coming at her at once for interpretation. So I very much encourage anybody that's going to do a co-sponsorship to hire essentially an interpreter. Most likely, I suggest a woman, because it'll be the wives in these families that don't speak English. Not all, but the majority of men were essentially interpreters, and they speak fluent English. So to work with the wives to help them adjust and find employment even is going to require quite a lot of time from other female interpreters that we can offer. I mean, we can say these 5 people are looking for a job and they all speak English, and that's what I would suggest.
Okay. There's a question here about helping folks with English remotely, signing up for that. I would think that Brian is their contact for that. And I'm just going to offer that if Brian and or Greg and anybody on this panel send me more details in writing about things they brought up today. For instance, this one, how do I volunteer to help with ESL remotely? I will post that so that you can post it in your local congregations. But unless I'm wrong, I would think Brian, who's on this panel, would be the person you would talk to about helping with English remotely.
Yep.
I'm not hearing. Yeah.
Just email me. That would be fine.
All right, great. We'll make sure that gets published so that you know how to reach him. So you may have answered this earlier, but I'm going to ask it again. Somebody has a temporary home for a family just in an emergency. Who would they contact to offer that? Or do you even want them to offer that?
Well, what we want them to do is offer that, then give us a chance to sort of them to understand that it will be a true emergency where we can't find an apartment when they come into play. And we try to make it as temporary as we can. But they just have to be very patient with us and understand that, these are people from a different culture you're inviting into your home, and that's going to be a very intense thing, possibly just go very fine too. So we're going to use it definitely on when we don't have other options, but we'd like very much to have it available. And I think they probably either contact Kristen or contact myself to.
Okay. So, yeah, we have a question about whether the diocese is going to encourage congregations to help with this effort. Yeah, that's why we're doing this. So, yeah, we're going to be pushing on it pretty heavy. And we're encouraging by this for you to engage locally and to get into this issue. So, yes, we're encouraging it. I have in the Q&A, I'm going to refer this to the staff, an actual offer of a home. And so if you all can look at that one and maybe respond directly to that person, that would be good. We have a question about where within the diocese will folks be settled. It sounds like, well, let me let you answer that. To ask a little bit different way. Where within the diocese will folks be settled?
Well, we're going to be driven a lot by where refugees where they want to live, and they will learn. And we're going to be talking to the arrivals that as much as we can, pre-arrival if we can, to what the family's attitude is to being resettled, perhaps in a more comfortable apartment that's not around a great many other Afghans. And that's the key question. We don't want to really disrupt somebody's desire to be around their countrymen, so to speak. But we think we can coax them away from South King County, where it's just heavily impacted, to, we hope, Everett, but it could be other areas too. I hope that's a plain enough answer.
No, that's good. And there's some typing going on for that too. There's a question about whether parolees will be eligible for all types of vaccinations we normally require of kids for school enrollment.
Oh, as a condition of their parole, they have to get a vaccination, a Pfizer shot, and all of the other vaccinations. What they guidance is within 7 days of arrival.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Excellent. All right. That answers that one. Now, with the want to live in the Afghan community near Seattle, what's the most helpful way for the diocese as a whole to participate in welcoming the Afghans? So I guess this question is about if we need to settle them, of course, where they want to be settled, where they are in the Afghan community, but you live in Tahuya, what is the best way for you to help you with that, even though they're 200 miles away?
I think Sarah and Brian have our answer to that, is to, both of that, their work can be assisted greatly by people willing to work remotely. If somebody wants to call 100 potential employers and refer the good ones to Sarah, that would be fantastic, and they can, and I'm sure she would take it.
Yeah, refugees have become, pretty familiar with Zoom as a whole. And so it really is possible to, I work remote from the office about 3 days of the week. So a lot of support can be provided remotely.
Great. So this question, many years ago, there was a program that was providing housing for unwed mothers who needed a safe place with support. Parishes and missions could adopt a room and provide furniture and supplies to furnish that room. Is there any similar kind of program that you're thinking of? Once housing is found for families, a church could sponsor the complete furnishing of a room or rooms in that house or apartment. That's a good question. I know I've given lots of furniture to the refugee center, but you might want to ask how that could be done now, or if that's helpful or not.
That if it's coordinated well, that could be very helpful. If we have an apartment, it's time consuming to go get furniture and put it in the apartment. And hopefully it can be done pre-arrival, but maybe, during the first week of arrival, a family's there and they have a few things we've been able to get in the apartment, but not everything. If a sponsoring group wanted to organize, purchase furniture, or use what we have in our storage room and just put it together and get it into the apartment, we can give you a list of required items, but that takes a big burden off our case managers.
All right, great. Thank you. We're down to 2 questions, and that's all. And I think they'll be pretty easy to answer. First one, is the Muslim Association of Puget Sound a good resource to go to?
Very much. They've helped us with rent.
I think so too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead. I think so, but go ahead.
Yeah, I would say yes. That we do.
Yeah.
There's Muslim housing groups, and they've saved us in the past. And I'm not calling them up and asking them to, provide, gobs of money that I think they might not have. But they're there, and they will assist as they can.
That's been my experience too. Thank you. Final question. Do you know how many total Afghans might be coming to our state?
I'm just guessing. I don't, and it is a guess. I think 2,000 in the next 6 months. And
all right.
Maybe 2/3 of those will go to South King County.
Well, folks, I want to thank everybody that's joined us today. And I really want to thank our panelists. So let's give them a virtual round of applause. I promise you they're all hollering out there and giving thanks for all of you, not just for today, but for the work you do every day. So thank you so much. We will be adding and writing. You'll get the slides. I think they said we'll give you those. And don't be afraid to ask for whatever else came out of this webinar that might be helpful locally for you. We'll try to get you some things in writing as well, so that you can pass that along to your congregations. thank you all for being here. Thank you to the panelists and for everything that you do. Thank you, Matt and Josh, for being behind the scenes and helping us with this today. As soon as we get this recording finished, we're going to spiff it up a little bit and we'll post it. And we really, really encourage you to promote that so that people in your congregation can watch this and see some of the questions being answered that were today and learn even more. So thank you all. Bless you all. Have a good day and good rest of the week. If we find a need to pull this back together, we will, and we'll offer a time like this more as we see where we go with all this. Okay?
For hosting us, and
Bye-bye.
please don't hesitate to email us at the emails we provided.
Wait a minute, Carla, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
Looks like you did. Okay, good. I can read faces. Way to go. All right, go for it.
Just on behalf of all Afghanistan people, especially the immigrants, I want to thank all this webinar groups members and participants. They are showing their interest for supporting with their house, with their volunteering, ASL classes and interpreting and everything. Sure, we will definitely get through these difficult days, but we will never forget those who support us in these difficult days. Thanks a lot for everything you all done for us. We will never forget.
Thank you. There's no better ending than that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Good day.
Thank you.